Hey, good evening once more, everybody. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Skot Covert. Current time right now, 8:30. One new severe thunderstorm warning. This one's going to be for the greater Fort Smith area. You can see the warning polygon exists right here. A lot of widespread heavy to moderate rain moving through the area. Look at all this development now beginning to occur off towards the west. Those are the storms that are going to be tracking our direction into the overnight hours. More on those, of course, coming up on your 5 News at 10. For now, let's focus on this severe thunderstorm warning that's moving through the Fort Smith area. Pretty strong thunderstorm, 60-mile-per-hour straight line winds and 1 inch in diameter hail likely going to be moving through the Roland area right now. Here's a closer look at that cell. It's pretty much crossing I-40 and 64 right now east of Roland, coming up on the state line, as well as extending as far south as, let's say, South Fort Smith. That's going to be tracking into the into the Van Buren and Fort Smith area as well. This is a strong thunderstorm. It's been growing as it's kind of riding up on a boundary out there this evening. When we look at the storm hail, what we're going to find is, generally speaking, right now, this is going to be pretty close to around the size of quarters, 1 inch in diameter. And you can see that hail core right here. It's going to be just to the south of Roland, continuing to track off towards the east. The thing to keep in mind about this specific cell, and really all of them that have been moving through this evening, they're moving pretty slowly, about 15 or so miles an hour, and that's it. So with all that rain that we just saw coming out of that storm, some low-lying areas, and we all know those great Fort Smith areas that are often flood-prone. It's probably going to be the case out there as this storm system moves through. Be mindful of that. There have been some areas of weak rotation tonight. I haven't seen any with this specific cell. I'm going to keep watching that just to make sure that doesn't change. Right now, the primary and only concerns are the potential for 60-mile-per-hour winds and 1 inch in diameter hailstones. I do want to do this. We have several cameras there in Fort Smith. We'll take a look at least one of them right here. This is going to be Mercy Rogers on Rogers Avenue, and you can kind of see the leading edge of that storm there off in the distance. Traffic's flowing smoothly there along Rogers Avenue. This is from the hospital looking back into the heart of that storm. You can see it just faintly there. When we get a little bit more lightning, you're probably going to notice, okay, there's a little bit off towards the west there. You can probably see that shelf cloud rolling through. There's a lot of lightning, so you're probably going to be hearing a lot of thunder out there as well with that shower. In Poto, things are pretty dark, pretty tough to see out there. We've had some storms move through. Of course, elsewhere in Bentonville, also seeing some moderate rain falling through the area right now. In terms of that one specific cell, it is going to be tracking over towards Franklin County. Now, generally speaking, the environment the further east you get has been less favorable for the development of severe thunderstorms. However, we're getting what's called a low-level jet to begin to kick in. These are some winds right above us that are going to be moving at around 30 knots or so. A scientific way just to say the reason why we're seeing these additional showers begin to develop is because that jet's kicking in. And so we're probably going to continue to see some on and off thunderstorms, not only this evening, but into the overnight hours as well. And there's a lot more where that came from. It's going to be a very active and wet first several days of this week. Drier weather not too far away. We'll go back into this cell here, get an idea of who's exactly seeing some of those hailstones out there. Hopefully some of them are melting before they actually make it to the ground. This is in addition to the 60-mile-per-hour straight-line wind threat with the specific cell. Fort Smith, all of town is included in this warning. Parts of Alma is included, all of Van Buren as well. Fort Chaffee, north of Picola. Muldrow is included, although the worst is probably just now passing just to your east in Muldrow. Here's the Cherokee Casino in Roland. That's probably really close to where we're getting a little bit of hail right now. We get into the river bottoms. That's also where we're seeing some of those hailstones. Now, with this tracking off towards the east-northeast, that's going to bring it really close into downtown Fort Smith, moving towards Van Buren there as well. If you got a car outside and you're able to quickly move it under a cover, wouldn't be the worst idea out there. It's moving slow enough. Might get a little bit wet, but if you hurry, you're probably going to be in okay shape. Let's do this. Let's go a little bit closer into this cell and see if we can't put some more roads up there on the map. And then I'll back out and give you a track and estimated times of arrival. It's going to move close to the U.S. Marshals Museum, again, right there in the river bottoms. Here's Baptist Health. Here's K. Rogers Park. State Fair, of course, Arkansas-Oklahoma State Fair going on right there. I suspect at this point in the evening with these storms that they've probably canceled most of those activities. But nonetheless, if by chance there are still folks out there, perhaps with livestock or some other reason, you might want to go ahead and seek some shelter. You're going to have a little bit of hail, some gusty winds moving your direction. I'm sure Travis is on top of that, keeping folks safe out there. Those winds are breezy. Those winds are probably gusting 50 to 60 miles per hour. Those are closing in on the state line right now. So these green pixels that you're seeing here, that's Doppler radar estimating those wind speeds, picking up pretty quickly. Let's do this. Let's back out just a bit. We'll put a track on this for the folks downstream. The worst of it is now getting really close to that Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. That's where you're going to find the darkest of those colors. That's generally speaking where you would find the heaviest downpours and probably a little bit of hail there as well. One other feature that I'm now noticing here, look at this. Yeah, it could be a little bit of a hooking feature there. Let's check rotation one more time before we put a track on it. I'm not seeing much there. It is really close to the radar site though. 25, so it's moving relatively slowly. Or was it 15? I can't remember already. Nonetheless, this will be close. Minimally, I'll give you a little bit extra time of a heads up. So that's from one portion of the storm where the winds are going to be the heaviest. Mill Creek 835, Fort Smith Regional Airport 842, Mercy Hospital, that camera we were just looking at, 845, Caroline Cross Park 846, let's say Power Plant 852, Catcher at 858, Kibler at 905. Going from the actual hail core itself, however, moving into downtown Fort Smith pretty much in the next couple of minutes, really, if that hail is making it to the ground. We'll move that, draw it up towards Van Buren there as well. So Moffett Bottoms pretty much just now. West Fort Smith 840, Riverfront Park, that's where the Marshals Museum is, 842. Downtown Fort Smith 846, K. Rogers Park 849. There's for the folks here at the Oklahoma-Arkansas State Fair. Van Buren 855. James Tate Elementary School right at 903. Some local landmarks that you might be familiar with. Got some rain happening right now along Highway 22 in Barling. That's all that is. This is this one thunderstorm that's right now moving through the river bottoms. That's where the most intense portion is. It is crossing the river. It is crossing the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line right now. It's going to be moving into Fort Smith. 60-mile-per-hour winds, probably the most concerning aspect of this. It is capable of producing some hail, though. I think the winds, though, we're going to see a little bit of damage, if anything at all. Here's that hail core. It looks pretty similar to how it did earlier the last time we checked on it. We'll go in a little bit closer, and then I'll ask the radar, hey, dude, give me an idea of how big this hail is. And it's just a Doppler radar estimate. Here's the river right here. You notice that core, this is probably going to read nickels to perhaps quarter. Okay, pennies, yeah, in the ballpark, closer to a nickel, right? Penny-size hail, that's a radar estimate. Could be a little bit bigger, could be a little bit smaller. It gives us a decent idea as that continues to move over into the Arkansas side of the line. That's the only bit of hail that we see right now. Moving off towards the east-northeast, you can kind of just envision where that's going to be tracking right there between downtown Fort Smith and let's say the 540 bridge, generally speaking. There's a lot of lightning at the Marshals Museum right now. I'm looking at our camera there off towards the west. That has actually a pretty good view into it. Hey, Trevor, if you could you pull up U.S. Marshals Museum camera, and then I'll probably want Mercy Fort Smith right after that. I know that'll take you a second, so I'll buy us some time here while you're working to queue that up. Trevor's our director up in the booth tonight, keeping things running nice and smoothly, helping us out as these storms move through. This is the only one that's severe, and it is packing a punch. Basically what's happened over the last several hours, there's a boundary, and we talk about a boundary. You can think of it a little bit like a front. It's just a mini leftover front, and it's kind of draped right through this general area. And these thunderstorms, almost one after the other. We had one over here earlier near Warner, caused some wind damage. Another one moved through parts of Haskell County, and we had another one that moved through northern LaFleur, southern Sequoia, almost like this one, have been trending up along that boundary. And it's that boundary that starts to influence their intensity. As the storm rides that boundary, it starts to act up, if you will. So the hope here is, and the idea that we've seen with all the other storms this evening, is once this guy gets a little bit further displaced from that boundary, in theory it should start to weaken. It is still riding it right now. That's the general vicinity and where it is. So what we'll notice over the next 10 to 15 minutes as that storm progresses away, in theory it should start to weaken. The other contributing factor that may prevent that from happening, now that I say it out loud, with that low-level jet kicking in, starting to see some of those other showers begin to develop, maybe that also helps sustain it just a bit. Trevor, whenever you are ready, still working on that? Widespread activity in Benton and Carroll, Madison County, extending as far south as, let's say, Greenland and West Fork. That is unnecessary. We've seen too much rain in the last 24 hours, certainly, but even the last 48 hours, this is only going to exacerbate some of those flooding concerns. No flood warnings in effect for our area. Thankfully, this isn't heavier. If it was heavier, we probably would be dealing with some issues out there. Right now, we're not. With more rain on the way, though, it is something that concerns me a bit going into the next several days. Time now, 8:39, coming up on 8:40. One severe thunderstorm warning that is now moving into Sebastian County out of Sequoia and far northern LaFleur County. There are some showers back near Heavener, but those showers are not even thunderstorms. There's nothing to be concerned with on those. Weather Service has trimmed up the warning, maintaining it for this Roland, Van Buren, Fort Smith, Barling, let's say Alma and Kibler as well. This warning, I believe, was going to be set to expire at 9:15. So good news for us is with this latest update, and I think we almost kind of just saw that a second ago. Latest update here, hail size has come down to 3/4 of an inch. That's not down a lot, but it is down nonetheless from that 1-inch diameter that the warning was initially issued for. 60-mile-per-hour winds, though, that hasn't changed, and that is certainly a thing that is going to be causing a little bit of damage out there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the velocity, those specific winds. We're right on top of the radar site, and sometimes that's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. In this case, it may be a little bit too close to be able to actually see a lot at all. Arcoma right now is probably rather breezy. I know we have a couple of storm spotters there that are good friends of Channel 5. I wonder if they can give us a report. If you'll send it to me, I'll get it on my watch, and I'll be able to pass that along to folks here on the stream. Those winds right now extending from downtown Fort Smith back towards the airport there. Of course, everyone knows where the Doppler radar site is. Choctaw Casino, it's probably pretty breezy there still, and that's going to be extending closer and closer to the Mercy Hospital area. We've got a camera there. Let's do this. Let me back up. I can take control of that one from here. We'll take that off. We'll take a look. Not seeing a lot, but you can see with the lightning on the backside of that cell, it continues to show the leading edge. It's kind of tough to make out. I know it's dark out there, but generally, if you just kind of draw your eye to this general vicinity, you can see the leading edge of that storm getting ready to move into the area. Marshall's Museum, I don't have it pulled up, but I can see it off air. It looks like some really intense rain. Tough to see much at all. Typically, I have a clear view all the way over into East Oklahoma. Do not have that right now. It's kind of tough to see even the river, how intense that rain is. So we're definitely going to have some of that minor street flooding across Fort Smith. You know, it doesn't take much, and we're probably going to get more than enough for that to happen out there right now. No issues along Rogers Avenue. That's the good news for us. We'll go back to live Doppler radar. New update here in this cell continues to show that warning remains in effect for the next several minutes. I am interested in seeing how all of this evolves. It does look like these are going to have the potential to grow into strong thunderstorms. One or two of them very well could be severe as well. That's certainly something that no one really wants to hear as they're hitting the hay on a Sunday night before work. Some of them are going to be loud, just like last night in Northwest Arkansas. I know the River Valley didn't get a lot last night. You may get your fair share of it tonight. Thunder was loud, kept a lot of folks up, scared one of my dogs out there. So I know a lot of folks are going to be dealing with that again later tonight. Let's see if we can't take another look at the winds velocities on that cell. We'll have to go back in a little bit closer. My eyes aren't that good. All right. Yeah, you can see the leading edge of that, the winds. I'll draw it for you right here. So, of course, we're right on top of the radar site in Fort Smith. It's going to be right here. So this is going to be kind of tough to see. The radar is almost just too close to it. Keep in mind it has to look kind of up a little bit. But you can see some really strong winds there, now extending from close to Mercy Hospital. I'll keep looking at that camera, see if anything changes over there, all the way down to, let's say, not far from ACHE, where we also have a camera out there. Trevor, if you're up in the booth, if you could let me know that. Can I get Mercy, Fort Smith, and Marshall's Museum, please? Thank you, Trevor. Those winds are going to push over towards Barling. This cell's been moving a little bit more east than northeast. A lot of the cells we've seen out there this evening have been moving more northeasterly. This one's probably going to track a little bit further due east. It's a big enough storm, though, that it will impact a few folks. In fact, you can see the northern edge of it probably is going to clip parts of Alma. It doesn't extend as far as Greenwood, but you get closer and closer towards Lavaca. There's going to be, of course, like Highway 22 right in this general vicinity. If you're traveling between Charleston and Fort Smith, you better be mindful of that. Here's that Mercy Fort Smith camera. There's the storm. There's the cloud deck right there approaching the area. This is where those winds are probably going to be breezy. We'll watch for maybe some evidence of those winds making it to the ground in that general vicinity. Let's go to Marshall's Museum. It looks a little bit better than it did just a moment ago. This is going to be looking off towards the west. So the river's typically right here. You can't see that river at all tonight. Typically you have a clear view, even on a clear night over into Oklahoma. Not the case out there. Heavy downpours coming down with this storm. The wind's probably blowing some of those rain showers around, and that's creating even more visibility concerns. I might be losing power at times. We got those street lights right there on the path, and they're flickering. So that could be lightning related, could actually just be wind related. I've noticed that a couple of times where those light poles are flashing. Let's go back to Mercy Fort Smith real quick, and then we'll take us back to live radar right after that. When we see Mercy Fort Smith, there it is. It's getting closer and closer to that camera. This is going to be the storm. I've got this pointed off towards the southwest. For some context, this road here, of course you know, it's going to be Rogers Avenue. As we look back into that cell, it's moving, but it's moving rather slowly. These had been moving at around 25 miles per hour or so. Let's see what it has changed to, if it has changed any at all. And yeah, it's still at 25. Okay, let's go back to live radar. Let's put a new track on this. Coming a little bit closer. Let's bump this dude to the west. Track it here. Wrong button, bozo. 25. I think that's pretty fair. Barling at 848, Kibler 857. The giant Budweiser can there in Lavaca on Highway 903. Ursula at 917, Vesta 922, Cecil at 936. Ozark Bible Institute, I believe that's Manitow Mountain. That's an old name for that place. YWAM now. I'll have to update the computer for that. That's where we would expect that storm to be moving right now. Hopefully it continues to show some signs of weakening. It's not as strong as it was. I'm thinking it might be getting off that boundary like we had hoped for. I do want to do this though. I want to go back into that hill core. Make sure that hasn't changed. It's come down. Pea-size hail perhaps mixing in there. And click this button. We'll change this to hill track. You can kind of see most of that hill went south of the casino in Roland, north of Pawpaw, right through the river bottoms, now extending closer and closer to downtown Fort Smith. That hail may avoid most of K. Rogers Park, maybe, but it is almost tracking due east. So we'll cross that river over into Van Buren, coming closer to Kibler. Right now it's lower than it was in terms of hail size. That's the good news. Ideally, it continues to drop in diameter. The threshold for a severe thunderstorm warning when it comes to hail is 1 inch or quarter size. We're below that right now. So the reason this warning continues is the potential for some damaging straight line winds up to 60 miles per hour. I do still see a pocket of those heavier wind speeds, higher wind speeds there. We'll go a little bit closer, identify who's probably experiencing those right now. Again, this is so close to the radar. It's really tough to get a good sample, but we'll try it anyways. This 31, 27. Yeah, a lot of these are hovering around 20 to 30. I think we're probably too close to the actual radar to actually see that with any degree of certainty. So here's 255 over towards Barling. Mazard Road right here, just north of the radar, so coming pretty close to the airport. We'll actually be able to see that airport sensor and see how much wind it's measuring. Here in about 5 minutes, that data will start to come in. Back this up. I'm going to push play for the last hour. I'm going to loop it for the last hour. Yeah, it's moving almost more east. A lot of the other storms are moving northeast, so this thing probably is riding that boundary a bit. Once this gets a few scans away, so here in about 5–10 minutes, we'll probably have a better picture of it. I still think right now it's certainly a strong thunderstorm. If you're in Fort Smith, you know exactly what we're talking about. In Alma, you're seeing a little bit of rain. It looks like the worst of the storm is going to actually miss, let's say, Alma proper, just to the south. If you live a little bit further south, it's probably going to impact you. Lavaca is not included in the warning, but I'll tell you, I mean, you're really close. You're right on that line. If it doesn't weaken before it gets to you, it certainly could be a strong thunderstorm that may have a little bit of hail and wind in it there as well. Let's go a little bit closer out ahead of it. I think Kibler may be next in line for some of those hailstones. Here's Fort Chaffee, here's the hospital, here's the Budweiser can. Think about that just moving due east between Kibler and Lavaca. Kibler and Lavaca moving due east. A lot of Fort Chaffee land out there is going to see some heavy downpours minimally, probably some hail mixing in there as well. Here's K. Rogers Park. So for the folks that were at the Arkansas-Oklahoma State Fair, I know it's probably late and they've dealt with enough weather that most folks probably weren't there, but I'm sure there was some staff remaining on site. Hopefully they were able to seek shelter and get away from those gusty winds. We'll go back to live radar, pause that where it is right now. The cell is almost entirely moved out of Sequoyah County. It is squarely in Crawford and Sebastian counties, kind of splitting the river right there. It'll continue tracking off towards the east, eventually into, let's say, Alma. Again, I think most of the worst part misses you to the south. Millbury, you might want to watch it in case it starts to veer back towards the northeast. I think Lavaca and perhaps Vesta and Meg may be a little bit more in the path of this storm. It's our only severe thunderstorm warning. It's really our only strong thunderstorm to begin with. So if you're elsewhere and you're wondering why is he so focused on this one storm, well, ain't nothing else misbehaving. This is the only fellow that's acting up on us this evening. We'll have to watch this scattered activity to grow into potential thunderstorms into the overnight hours. But for the most part, right now, this is the only concern. Moderate rainfall extends from Benton into Carroll, Madison, down towards Franklin and Johnson County. Even some light showers extending ahead of this thunderstorm in Logan. And there's some clusters of showers, heavy at times in mid LaFleur County over into southern Sebastian and Scott County. But it's just this one thunderstorm. Let's see, this warning was set to expire at 9:15, so we have a ways to go unless they cancel it early, which is certainly in their purview. Right now, I think those winds are probably going to be heavy enough that they probably won't end up doing that. Here's Barling. Here's downtown Fort Smith. Marshall's Museum right over here. Van Buren right here. You're crossing the river bridge, that 540 River Bridge. It's probably pretty intense right now. Let's go ahead and take another look at that Mercy Fort Smith camera. It actually looks pretty tame to me right now. Yeah, not a lot going on. Frequent lightning and thunder, you're probably hearing that. It's kind of tough to see if there's any wind out there or not from this vantage. We don't have a tree to look at. We don't have a wind flag or anything like that. That would give us an idea of how strong those winds are. Start seeing some debris flying, and then you've probably got a pretty good idea, but I don't see any of that. A lot of lightning, a lot of thunder, and a decent amount of heavy rain that's continuing to move through the area. So you might want to take it slow. If you have to be out and about this evening, definitely use some extra caution. I know a lot of folks are probably just home and going to stay put for the night. With this thunderstorm rolling through, wanted to give you some information. Let's go back to live radar. Thank you, Trevor. What's the hail doing? It's still there, still a signature for it. It's probably closer to pea size, if anything at all. It says pennies, so that's about the same thing. Okay, we've trimmed the warning out of Sequoyah County. There was a small sliver left in the warning. That has since been allowed to be canceled. So right now it's Crawford and Sebastian. U.S. Marshals Museum, that's where we were looking earlier. It's kind of tough. It's just dark over there, especially with some lightning I think we might have lost power to some of those lights on the sidewalk there. Here's downtown Fort Smith. If there is any hail, that's where it would probably be right now. Would love to hear some of your reports. I can't see the Facebook comments for better or for worse, but if you want to text me, number here at the station, 479-785-5000. Nichols-sized hail, that's going to be right along 71 and 64. Here's Creekmore Park, probably close enough that you got some small hail, minimally some big old fat raindrops coming out of that. This is going to be Albert Pike Avenue, Free Ferry Road right here. That's going to be coming close to 540, just for some context. In fact, that hill's probably right now, the way the radar works, is probably actually on top of 540 and closer to Caroline Cross Park, and then eventually it's going to track over towards the other side of the river over there. Let's do this. Once it crosses the river, you're looking up and down 59. Beyond that, you kind of get towards the extended portion of the warning. You're in river bottom territory down here. Here's Harrelton right here, Catcher right here. Both communities included in this severe thunderstorm warning. We'll see if it actually extends that far out. Certainly still a signal for a little bit of hail right there. We'll go a little bit closer. Why not? So that's going to be Greenwood Avenue, Grand Avenue, Albert Pike Avenue. Right there in that vicinity, we probably just had some hail come through. Question is, did it melt any at all before it made it to the surface, or is it still in that penny size range? The warning itself was for up to quarter size. I think we're trending below that. That's the good news. Let's hope it continues trending downward. That's a sign that the storm's probably going to begin weakening. We'll go back to the winds now. I don't know if those are weakening much. There's still a pocket of some heavy activity there. Pick out one or two of these. This just says 20. Maybe it is weakening up just a bit. It's going to be there at Albert Pike. Come back out just a bit. Probably breezy and barling right there, out ahead of that storm. That's actually the most intense part right now, is there on barling. Almost looks like it's splitting. Two different cells trying to emerge from that. So radar site right here, Highway 255 towards Barling. That's probably where the most intense part is. I would not want to be traveling Barling over towards Central City, over towards Charleston on Highway 22 tonight. That cell is probably producing minimally some really intense rainfall. I think the winds are pretty breezy within that as well. You can kind of see that pocket of winds right there. Those brighter greens, that would indicate to us you got some pretty gusty straight line winds coming out of it. That's probably why the warning's still in existence. Otherwise, they would have just dropped it. That's certainly included in that warning. It is interesting, though, that when you play this, we'll do this. Back that up. Let me play this for the last hour. It almost appears that that cell is splitting in some sense. Kind of had one cell come out of Sequoia County over into Sebastian and Crawford, and now it almost appears as if there's two different cells. You got the one that's going to be tracking into Van Buren. There's that hell core right there, right on top of 64. That seems like it may be coming back up. And you've got another one over towards Barling. That don't have a lot of hail in it, but it probably has some gusty winds. It's not a distinct individual cell anymore. And this one, the northernmost, and then the southernmost. It's going to be moving towards Kibler. Let's see, this one almost wants to try to move. Yeah, it's still mostly east. I bet we have that hill come up there. It may not show it just yet here, but it will next couple scans. It's certainly broader. That signal there is a little bit bigger than it once was. Still in the same general vicinity. Here's Kelly Highway right here. So here's 540. Bridge is going to be just to the north right here. Crossing the river over into Van Buren, you're probably going to encounter a little bit of hail. Hey, Trevor, I don't know if you're able to. There is a good RDOT camera on the 540 bridge over into Van Buren and Fort Smith. Are you able to pull that up? I know it might take you a second. Okay, if it's too much, don't worry about it. Oh, you know what? I think I might be able to get to it quicker than you. This might be a little bit easier, no worries. Okay guys, this is going to look a little funky at first. Bear with me. All right, so this is going to be looking at Grand Avenue along 540. We're looking towards the north. It's a pretty good view. It's lit up pretty well out there. I'm not seeing any hail. Certainly see a lot of rain. Folks on the 540 commute are taking it a little bit slower out there this evening, which is good. In fact, drive times look to be down to around 40 to 50 miles per hour through Kelly Highway through Grand. Here's Kelly Highway right now. That rain is pretty intense. I do see some ponding there on the roadways. So there's a lot of good reason to actually go ahead and take it slow out there this evening. We're coming up on 9:01 right now. Warning expires at 9:15. We have seen some subtle signs of weakening out there, but it is causing some travel concerns. It almost always floods in Fort Smith. It doesn't take much, right? So I think that's probably going to be the case out there right now. That's the only severe thunderstorm we have. Back to area-wide radar shows widespread soaking rains elsewhere. More developing. That's a 1-hour radar loop that I'm showing you right there. And you notice off towards the west, those additional showers, even sometimes some thunderstorms, are really starting to bubble up. Those could grow into severe thunderstorms in of themselves. So I don't necessarily think we're going to be done after this one warning expires here in about 15 or so minutes. Very well could have some additional loud rumbles of thunder, some lightning, maybe even a few more warnings into your phone into the overnight hours. A lot like last night, some folks are going to see this activity. Not everyone's going to. Those that do will know about it because it's probably going to be loud out there. And then we've got more rain on the way tomorrow. This is the warning right now, but these are the showers that I'm talking about back up towards the west. And you can see those extending well across Interstate 40 back closer and closer to OKC. There's a low-level jet kicking in. Low-level jet's just some increase in wind speeds a little bit above us here at the ground. And that's just enough to interact with the atmosphere here locally to produce more of these showers and thunderstorms. And you can see as it kicks into gear, now that we're well after sunset, it is in fact doing just that. Even some additional development in Delaware and southwestern Benton County, western Washington County there as well. So this is going to continue for a lot of us, maybe somewhat scattered in nature, but is nonetheless going to be some additional showers and some thunderstorms. I want to go back and look here in Fort Smith. Nope. The magic button stopped working. Not seeing a lot of wind out there. That's the good news. Let me check my... Okay, not getting any storm spotter reports. That's good. Slow traffic, nothing too problematic. Rain continues in Bentonville here. Of course, we got the 10 o'clock newscast. At some point, I'm going to have to wrap this up and put the final touches on that forecast for you and present that to you here on 5 News Plus, and of course over on 5news.com as well. Looking out towards the north Fayetteville, you got a little bit of light rain out there. Not the prettiest of evenings, not the driest. No question about that. Mostly dry at the moment, but you can see those additional showers and thunderstorms beginning to develop. And you're also noticing the lightning count starting to come up on those. That tells us they're certainly going to be growing. We'll go back into this cell in Fort Smith, a little bit closer look. We probably got some new data to stream in that might give us a better idea of the health of this thunderstorm. And still, for 3/4 of an inch size hail, that's below the size of quarters, and winds at 60 miles per hour. It's actually, now that it's crossing over the radar, I will tell you, it's not necessarily weakening much. It's a pretty intense thunderstorm moving through. We'll go back into the hail. I'm curious about what that's doing. Yeah, so interestingly enough, I kind of told you that the cell was splitting, right? When you look at the hail cores, now there's two. There's two different sectors of those cells. There was one kind of split at the state line, and now you're seeing two coinciding updrafts, and that's the takeaway there. Is you got those two updrafts, you have two hail cores. The northern one's still the most dominant, penny-sized hail coming out of that, but perhaps in Barling we might have, well, let's say less than a quarter. So it's not severe, but mixing in with some of that rain, that heavy rain, you very well could have some pea-sized hail. Possible that increases with size. It kind of depends on which cell becomes more dominant. The southern one often does, so my money would probably be on that Barling cell. As this one continues though, it's looking like a strong thunderstorm. It's going to be moving towards Lavaca. We'll see if there's a new warning issued for that. Quarter size in Van Buren about 10 minutes ago. Good folks, good ham radio operators there in Fort Smith. Go back to this. So this has probably moved. This is probably just a little bit behind. This has probably moved right across the river at this point. That would coincide with some of those reports that are coming in. Go back to the winds. Now the winds in Barling, to me, continue to be interesting here. Interesting in the sense of they're just a little bit stronger. You can kind of see that pocket of wind traveling east along 22. These brighter reds right here, that's going to be winds moving into Central City out of Barling, moving away from the radar. That's why they're red there. That's a terrible arrow. You get the idea though. Right along Highway 22, pushing out of that cell. Starting to see some hail in this cell, right in this general vicinity as well. Go back north, didn't mean to go that far out. Hail to the north, winds to the south, probably somewhere in between. There's some gusty winds out there as well, moving towards Van Buren and Alma. Alma's technically included in the warning. The worst of it looks to stay to your south. And by the worst of it, I mean the majority of the heavy rain and the hailstones. Some of it may work its way into your neck of the woods. Let's loop this for the last hour. Let's see an idea. And most of it's tracking more easterly. So I think a lot of that may end up staying just to the south of 64. Perhaps it builds north. That's certainly a real possibility, but you can have some light to moderate rain. Worst of the thunderstorm probably going to stay south of 64, north of Barling. As that continues to track towards the east, we'll cross the river again. We get to the Franklin-Sebastian County line, Franklin-Crawford County line. Mulberry may be in line for at least a little bit more moderate rainfall. Right now, the general track would take this just to the south of Mulberry, north of Charleston, right in between. And it is almost moving due east. A lot of these cells had been moving east-northeast. This one kind of has a mind of its own, which is interesting. Let's see, we're about 9 minutes away from the expiration of this warning. We'll hang tight here. I'll show you the severe zone for tonight. It's level 1 for everybody, which isn't necessarily high. We've cleared parts of northwestern Benton County. That's the update. I guess it's came in since we've been on this stream. Everyone else, though, in a level 1 out of 5. Tomorrow's a level 1 out of 5. Wednesday's a level 1 out of 5. Tuesday also is, although I think Tuesday may end up getting increased. It's possible. We've got a front coming through. So in addition to this pesky upper level low that's just been causing repeated rounds of these showers and thunderstorms, you get a cold front to work its way through the area at the same time. A little bit more energy, a little bit more forcing in the atmosphere. Certainly a recipe for some stronger, more robust thunderstorms. We'll deal with what we got to tonight first before that gets here. And this is what we do have. Scattered showers and thunderstorms area-wide. One severe thunderstorm warning moving through downtown Fort Smith. Now on the east side of Fort Smith, really. Parts of it east Fort Smith, also parts of it tracking into Van Buren. The cell kind of split into two, if you will. It was a compact, strong cell as one, and then pretty much split into two as it was moving through the Fort Smith area. You get strong hail core now moving into Van Buren across the river, as well as on the south side, Fort Smith over closer to Barling. That's got a little bit of wind and a little bit of hail with it as well. Both would look to me like they're coming down. I'll try. We'll put it all into motion. You can see that first hail core. This is the one that prompted the warning coming out of Sequoia County. Definitely had some quarter-size hail for sure. south of 64, south of 40, moved into Fort Smith, downtown Fort Smith there. Got some hailstones mixing in with all that heavy rain. The cell starts to split, and you can kind of see this updraft starting to develop a bit of a hail core there. That's coinciding with exactly where those increased wind speeds are as well. So really a big cluster of thunderstorms, not a clean split. It's not totally distinct from each other, but two strong cells nonetheless. Interestingly, both are trying to take, as they reform, both are trying to take that northeasterly turn when you look at it from just the hail cores, but when you look at it just on the rain mode, overall, the thunderstorm is moving mostly towards the east, a little bit towards the northeast, but more easterly than anything else. The storm's going to get a little bit more intense in Lavaca. I know you've got the rain right now, but those showers and thunderstorms are going to get heavier. The lightning is going to probably increase in frequency. It's going to get a little bit louder. Rain's going to start coming down a little bit heavier, and you might even have some small hail mixing in along 22 there over towards Lavaca. Here, of course, is 96 towards the south, and probably have some issues there as well. Kibler's probably next in line after Lavaca. Van Buren's getting it good right now. Heavy downpour, probably have some hail mixing in there. Now we had that report about, so that came in at 9:04, and that was about 10 minutes ago. So about 15 or so minutes ago, had some hail there. Very well could be still some mixing in with the rain. For the most part, it's just heavy rain, but that hail is certainly going to be mixing in at times. Most of it's subsevere. That's subsevere is a technical standard, but the fact is no one wants any size hail out there, right? Once you meet that quarter size or 1 inch in diameter threshold, however you want to look at it, that's what technically qualifies as severe. This storm isn't meeting those thresholds right now. Right now, the reason the warning continues is for the 60-mile-per-hour straight line wind potential coming out of it. Let's see, this will say Alma, Barling, Fort Smith, Van Buren included in this warning. What they're going to do, it expires in 4 minutes. Either they're going to start to trim part of Fort Smith out of it, since most of Fort Smith proper is no longer in the worst, most intense part, or they'll have to draw out a new one. It's very possible that's what they end up doing. It would include parts of southern Crawford, eastern Sebastian, maybe even western Franklin, if they were to draw one up. I don't want to speak for them, but that's probably what they're thinking about right now and discussing internally as to, does this storm still require a warning, or do we want to let it go? I will tell you this, right around 9:15, whether or not they extend a warning or not, I'm going to have to end the live stream. I got to finish up the 10-day forecast for you coming up tonight at 10. So it's not that I don't love you. You know I love you. I just got to go do that first. Because I love you, I got to go do that. I'll tell you, it's a standard severe thunderstorm warning. It's a little bit scary at times. I know you hear the word severe, and okay, severe thunderstorm warning. This is the base severe thunderstorm warning. There's no rotation in any of this. I'll show you just for good measure that we're still not seeing any. I've kind of been looking at some off-air radar products out of the corner of my eye from time to time. Not seeing any of that. We'll take another good look for good measure. Yeah, not seeing much there. Certainly some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall. Probably some lightning mixing in. I still see frequent lightning on all of our Fort Smith cameras. I have a monitor off to the side here that can see what's going on around town, and I tell you, there's a decent amount of lightning still out there. It's come down a bit, especially if our cameras looking off towards the west, but those looking back towards the east into that storm, there's a decent amount. So you're probably hearing it for sure. Let's see, 913, area wide. Let's loop this. This will be over the last 3 hours, so I'm giving you something a little bit different this time. This is the first wave that moved through earlier today. We had more of these develop. This is the one that's now moving into out of Sebastian and Crawford counties. And now we look off towards the west. This guy is starting to pulse up really quick. Not only is it growing in size and intensity, notice the lightning's coming up there as well. That's going to be near Lake Tenkiller. That's going to be tracking into Adair County and eventually over into Washington County, perhaps far northern Crawford as well, kind of depending on how east or northeast it wants to go. Right now, I would kind of draw it probably more into the Washington County side of the line. Devil's Den State Park would be next in line for that. So strong thunderstorms, not severe, but you can just tell it's trying to grow. The question is, what's the ceiling on some of those storms? It could become marginally severe, just like this fella down here could very well be as well. Additional scattered showers developing back towards McAllister. You can see those extending not only towards McAllister, but even up and down Interstate 40. They're just showers right now, but they're just now getting going with that increase in mid-level wind speeds that are really enhancing some of these showers and these thunderstorms to continue. So we're going to see those overnight. Going to have some more out there probably tomorrow morning for parts of the area. Interestingly enough, all of this activity that we're seeing is going to have major implications to where and who sees rain tomorrow morning. All of these showers and storms, these rounds of showers and storms that we've been getting, especially the overnight early morning rounds, have major implications. It's like the domino effect. So we'll see what happens out there tonight. That's going to dictate the placement of tomorrow morning storms. And then it does look like we get another round probably Monday night into Tuesday. Ahead of that front, as that front comes through, there could be a secondary round. Those are the ones that could be a little bit stronger out there. I hate to see it's like a wait and see thing. I hate to say it's a wait and see thing, but really in large part, and the Weather Service agrees on this, you kind of got to see what happens tonight. It's going to have some domino effects on what happens tomorrow morning. And the same way what happens tomorrow morning will have domino effects on what happens tomorrow evening. That's a lot of if this, then that type of forecasting. As we continue to track this across the area, they've dropped that severe thunderstorm warning. It's no longer severe. That's good news. So, okay, right on cue. I'm going to end this live stream. I'm going to go finish the 10-day forecast for you, and I'll meet you right back here. Is that a deal? 10 o'clock newscast over on Channel 5 or on 5 News Plus. We'll have the latest on tomorrow's chances of rain, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. And I do have drier weather, and I do have cooler weather coming up in the 10-day forecast. Of course, we'll have the details for you on that coming up here in just a few moments.